First, can I ask you a little bit about the decision on whether or not to delay step 4, which of course you'll take tomorrow and tell us all about it. The Prime Minister said yesterday, it may be in the race between the vaccines and the virus. We need to give the vaccines extra legs. What does giving the vaccine extra legs mean in that context?
So we've seen, I think on the last data I saw, 78% of adults in the UK have had their first vaccine, 55% have had their second. So there's a lag between the two. We know when we get up to the second dose, it provides effective protection against the virus, but also the Delta variant and others. So the question is not, we're confident whilst the variants of increased transmission, we're confident that we've weakened the link between transmission and hospitalisation, those that suffer the more serious end of COVID. What we're not sure yet is whether we've broken or severed the link. And that is what, in real time, with the data coming through every day, we're looking at, and that will be the basis for the decision amongst all the other data that the Prime Minister will make tomorrow.
OK, a 4-week delay is what England is now expecting the Prime Minister to announce. Look, I know you've made no final decisions yet, that much I accept. But if step 4 won't be this month on June the 21st, after all, can you at least give us some assurance that you will have vaccinated enough people with second doses by next month, by the end of July? Will step 4 happen by the end of next month, if not this one?
So the Prime Minister said we want to be irreversible in the transitioning through the 4 steps. We're at step 3, so we've made good progress because of the vaccine rollout, but we want to be irreversible. So we just got to be careful that we're there in terms of the data. We, as you know, the plan has been to get every adult vaccinated by the end of July, and we're still on course to do that. So I think in terms of that assurance, you can see from the rollout of the vaccine that we're closing in on our goal.
That's, of course, vaccinated with a first dose, not a second dose. So that will take until, I think, the end of December by most people's calculations. So there is concern that this could slip into August, into September. You couldn't tell me there, and perhaps I understand why, that you cannot guarantee step 4 in July at least. There are reports this morning that we may even be living under these legal restrictions until next spring if we miss that summer window. Is that realistic?
Look, that's just speculation. I don't know where that's come from, but it's doesn't reflect the thrust of where we've got to. Let's remember, we've made huge progress. There are 4 steps in the roadmap. We've gone through 3 of them. We're just looking at the 4th step, and the vaccine rollout has gone exceptionally well. Of course, we've had, if you like, the googly thrown at us of the variants, but because the vaccines are effective against the variant, the key thing is just to get up to the double dose figures. So I think on the trajectory that we're on, I think things are all still very much on track, but there may be, and again, it depends on the data, just a question of whether we've severed the link between transmission and hospitalisations in time to do the 4th step, which is scheduled for the 21st of June.
Right, so double doses and the number of double doses is the crucial thing there. And we know we'll have a lot of double doses by the end of July and certainly into August. That's the sort of time we can be absolutely confident, can we, that we'll have full restrictions eased?
I think the one thing how many interviews have I done with you, Tom? I don't think there are absolute guarantees because we're dealing with a new vaccine and we're dealing with the variants of a new vaccine. But I think people can take confidence from the fact of the vaccine rollout to date and the fact we've gone through 3 steps. And in fairness, Tom, we did anticipate at the outset by saying that we would only take these steps at the earliest on the date in question. So for step 4, the 21st of June, and it would be based on the data. So I think we followed pretty faithfully and predictably what we said we'd do.
OK, finally on this, there will be some protests, a lot from perhaps your own MPs tomorrow if you do announce a delay, which we're all expecting, the Libertarian wing of the Conservative Party perhaps. But it's interesting that, in fact, 2 opinion polls over the last couple of days have found that the public are pretty substantially in favour of delaying restrictions if need be, some 54% to 37% in a poll in The Observer this morning. Do you think the public gets this?
Yeah, I think they do. I think they have all along. I think there's anxiety. We're a country and the world that has gone through a huge amount of loss in the last 18 months. We think back of that with deep hearts and a lot of sorrow and anguish. And the key thing now is to make sure we come out of this the right way. And the right way is irreversibly, but carefully. And of course, at step 3, we're more open than we were before. I appreciate there'll be businesses, there'll be individuals who want to socialise more. There's the hospitality trade that would love to see that step 4. There's not a single person in government that doesn't feel the same sense of restlessness to get out. But we do share the public's instinct that we need to do this carefully and sustainably and in a sure-footed way, and that's what we'll do.
Let's move on to why we're both here. Obviously, you to participate in the G7 summit, me just to merely observe. COVID-19's origin was discussed by the G7 yesterday during one session. One of the working theories, as you know, is that the COVID-19 outbreak originated from the Wuhan Institute of Virology. Clearly originated in animals first. The Wuhan Institute of Virology had a sample of COVID-19 and it then leaked from there. Now, Anthony Fauci, Joe Biden's chief medical advisor, has urged China to release the medical records of 9 different people whose illnesses might provide vital clues about whether it was that lab leak or not. 3 researchers from the institute and 6 miners who fell ill after entering a bat cave in 2012. Do you echo Dr. Fauci's request to Beijing to release those medical records so the whole world can see?
So in terms of the origin of the virus, I just don't think we know yet. The initial review was quite careful and cautious about saying anything definitive. And I totally agree that what we need to see from the government in Beijing is full cooperation with that international review so we can get answers. And I don't think this is about finger pointing. I think it's about learning the lessons so that we can do better next time. And of course, at the G7 summit, we've been agreeing a declaration, if you like, to make sure, it's called the Carbis Bay Global Health Declaration, to make sure that we're in better place for the next pandemic that, God forbid, comes along. Better place to license vaccines within 100 days, better place to track the virus coming down the way, better place in the WHO, strengthening and reforming that. And part of that, in order to achieve that, we do need to learn the lessons from this pandemic, and that means understanding how it happened at the outset.
So those 9 medical records, the Dr. Fauci wants them, America wants them. Would you like to see them released too?
I think we'd like to see full cooperation, including release of data and access provided to the international review that's been set up with widespread support so that we can have, in an independent, objective, non-politicised way, we can get to the root of what happened and get the answers that everyone wants and needs.
Now, the G7, I think it's fair to say, haven't been wholly united on China. There's been a fairly large debate. One concern that's been raised here that I've heard is the Chinese may have destroyed all the evidence that we may possibly need to get to the bottom of this outbreak. Is that a concern you might have?
I don't think we know until we have the cooperation, the requests for data being fulfilled, the requests for access being fulfilled. But we ought to be cooperating in a constructive way with China, and China ought to be demonstrating that kind of goodwill so that we can all, again, as I say, in an objective, depoliticised way, without people speculating, as I appreciate it's your liberty to do, but as to what's happened here, we ought to have the answers. And of course, it's in China's interest that we deal with this on the basis of the facts rather than insinuation or assertion or claims. And so I would encourage maximum cooperation. And we've been grappling with that as well as many other issues at this G7 summit.
Well, you have. One thing you're announcing today is a Build Back Better for the World plan to offer developing world high-quality financing for vital infrastructure from railways in Africa to wind farms in Asia, I think, as the press release says, and I dutifully report. Now, some have nicknamed this the Green Belton Road. That's obviously a reference to China's substantial infrastructure financing project for the developing world, its own Belton Road project. How much is your own plan this morning, the Build Back Better for the World plan, meant as a counterbalance to China's huge amounts of global financing and therefore huge amount of influence they're gaining from it?
Well, just by way of context, of course, we've had the worst crisis since the Second World War, and I think it's been important to get world leaders together under the UK presidency to try and deal with a sense that countries have been going their own way. So you've seen a gear change in international collaboration. We've dealt with vaccines, climate change and various other things. On this question of the Build Back Better for the World initiative, what this is all about is making sure that the offer that the freedom-loving democracies of the world make to the poorest countries from Africa to Asia is a high-tech one. is a sustainable one and a green one, is a one which gives those countries that receive that support a sense of being masters of their own destiny and a positive way forward. And it's certainly not aimed at one or other particular country. But I was in East Africa recently. I went from Ethiopia to Kenya to Sudan. And, you look at some of the debt burdens that those countries face. And when you talk to them about it, they said to me, heads of government in a lot of these countries, from Asia to Africa, make us a better offer. And what we're doing under our presidency is getting countries together, getting world leaders together, the Prime Minister driving this with the US and others, and saying, let's make a better offer, a more compelling and more sustainable offer for the poorest countries in the world.
Let's move on and talk about the Northern Ireland Protocol if we can, because I'm afraid it has come up at this summit quite a lot.
Can I just say on that, Tom, I'm happy to talk about it. It's been pretty peripheral to the nuts and bolts, from climate change to vaccines to the economy to girls' education that we've talked about.
I'm sure that's what you'd like, but it has come up in bilats, it's come up in media coverage, so I'm going to put a few questions to you. I accept you've been doing other things, and we've just spoken about this.
One of them, but I think that I just want to gently, forgive me, make the point that what the media crawl all over, because they're not in the room, is not necessarily reflective of the prevailing dominance of the issues we discussed, even in the bilats. But I'm happy to answer the question nonetheless.
Okay, if I can. You are supposed to showcase Britain's post-Brexit international standing here, but, whether you like it or not, this has not dominated but played a substantial part of the summit. Why have you allowed this to happen? Why have you allowed Macron and Ursula von der Leyen, all these others, to say what they're saying? They're the ones speaking in public about this protocol. We're just reporting it, if you don't mind me saying. Haven't you missed an opportunity to present a united image here and getting tracked down a rabbit warren of Brexit yet again?
No, I don't think so, because in the rooms and in the bilaterals, even with our European friends, we've been talking about girls' education, the drive to get 40 million more girls into 12 years of quality education. You're going to see an excellent step forward on that in the communiqué. There's the step change in cuts in emissions, not just net zero by 2050, but halving emissions by 2030. There's the stuff on the pandemic, which we've mentioned. There's the stuff on vaccines, 1 billion extra doses to bring forward the point at which the world is vaccinated from the end of 2024 to the middle of 2022. Frankly, the Brexit issue has been peripheral. If you want to know why we haven't been able to stop the Europeans raising it, we can't gag or disinvite the European friends, and nor will we try to. But this is not dominated, and I think the proof of this is in the declaration that you will see out at 2:00, just in time. You can read it at half time during the football. And I think if you look at it, it'll be over 25 pages. You will see the depth and the range of things that in this gear change of global collaboration under the presidency this Prime Minister has brought, we're dealing with.
What did it tell you when you heard Emmanuel Macron tell the Prime Minister yesterday that Northern Ireland was not part of the same country as the United Kingdom?
Well, forgive me if I don't divulge what's been discussed in meetings, but what I'd say is that there was more than one person, senior European figure, talking about this in this way at this summit, and I've heard it for years now. And the truth is, Northern Ireland cannot be talked about as a separate country to the UK. It's offensive, and that kind of approach, it speaks volumes. That is one of the reasons we have the problems we do with the Northern Ireland Protocol, because there isn't a proper appreciation, and there's been a lopsided approach, and that does real damage to businesses and communities and creates real anxiety to all communities in Northern Ireland. So I think the PM was firm. We want to be flexible, pragmatic. We want to find a way through this, but we will not have the integrity of the UK threatened, particularly on the basis, shall I say, of flawed assumptions. I can think of other words to describe it. And we will do everything we can to protect the integrity of our country. Can I just give you one example of this, Tom?
Well, let me just ask you quickly. Let me just put a question to you on this, because I know we haven't got much time left. The grace period for chilled meat runs out on June the 30th. That is a real big moment. And obviously, we would like sausages, chicken nuggets and the like continue to be exported into Northern Ireland so they can chew on our bangers continually. Can you give supermarkets and the people of Northern Ireland that promise, if you like, that they can continue to get their sausages from Britain after June the 30th, no matter what, be it by a unilateral decision or a deal?
Well, we've said we're going to protect the flow of trade between
Does that mean they'll get their bangers
Britain and Northern
post June
Ireland.
30th?
I'm not going to preempt the individual Grace decisions, but what I would say is, look, 1 in 5. You look at the perimeter of the EU from the Central and Eastern Europe round to the Mediterranean south, and you think of the border that they are seeking to police, and we understand why. Fully 1 in 5 controls and checks is now conducted in Northern Ireland, triple what you see in Rotterdam, double what you see in France. Does that sound like a proportionate approach? Does it sound like sausages going from Britain to Northern Ireland is a threat to the integrity of the single market in the EU? I don't think so. So what we need is the pragmatism and the goodwill, and frankly, a full reflection of every bit of the Northern Ireland Protocol, including Article 6, which protects free flow of trade both ways between GB and Northern Ireland. If we get that, we'll find a smart, sensible way through, which is win-win.
Secretary of State, it's Daisy here. I'm just got a couple of minutes to come in. I want to ask you about football in just a moment. You won't be surprised to know. But I just want to take you back to what you just said about Emmanuel Macron. You said we couldn't gag him or disinvite him. And I'm sure there are plenty who might want to do that. But I want to know, why do you think he is continuing to say the things he says which are unhelpful? Is he playing to you and the British government, or do you think he's playing to his domestic French electorate, to whom he's hoping will re-elect him next spring?
Well, I'm not sure it's very helpful for me to speculate, but I think it's a reasonable question. All I can say is we've got a good relationship with our French friends. There's a whole range of things that we collaborate and cooperate on. The Prime Minister has a good rapport with President Macron. But at the end of the day, whatever the domestic politics, we cannot have the integrity of the UK, or indeed the communities on all sides of Northern Ireland, being put at risk by what you've described, a politicised approach, or in any event, an approach which doesn't respect the full terms of the Northern Ireland Protocol, including Article 6. Now, the PM was very clear, very firm, but he was also pragmatic about it and flexible. He wants to find solutions. The ball is in the EU's court. David Frost has sent over proposal after proposal. So the real question is what they want to do next. But what we will not allow is the integrity, economic, constitutional or otherwise, of the United Kingdom to be put at risk.
You mentioned David Frost. Will you be following his sartorial sock example and wearing Union Jack or GB socks?
I haven't got them, but I feel I've missed a trick there. I've been out Union Jack by Frosty.
You've been out-socked. The football starts in a few hours. Obviously, it's England's first game of the Euros. We know that the English players will take the knee. We're expecting some fans to boo that. Would you say that those fans who do boo are racist?
I don't know what the intention of it is. And look, first of all, I respect and indeed support the decision of the England team to say they want to take a stand against racism. I feel passionately about that myself. I suspect the overwhelming majority of people listening do. I don't think people should boo or jeer. I don't know why they might do it, but I don't think people should boo their team. I hate that when I go and watch the football, whether it's club, but particularly country, at a European championships. Get behind our team, get behind the flag, and let's support England. Let's hope they get off to a winning start.
Because a lot of the fans who do intend to boo would say they're not racist. They would say that they disapprove of the virtue signalling. It gets in the way of the game, and it's not appropriate.
Yeah, and look, I'm not going to be dictatorial about how people express themselves. I just don't think booing the England team on the first game in the European Championships is particularly helpful or helps get your message across.